Go ahead. What's going on, guys? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing all right myself. Not bad, not bad. It's a nice sunset evening here. So yet again, I recorded a video on the way here, and I talked for the whole 9 minutes or so, and that got deleted. It was stopped recording halfway through. So anyways, what I want to talk about today is the 3 main road surface hazards. I'm narrowing it down to 3, but there's really more than that. But the 3 main road surface hazards you want to look for when you're on the road riding on a motorcycle. So, defining a road surface hazard. A road surface hazard is something that's going to be on the actual surface of the road, or like part of the surface of the road. So instead of just like say an obstruction, like say a tire or a cone or part of a bumper that had fallen onto the car, or fallen off of a car onto the road, that would be kind of an obstruction and just like basically a road hazard, not actually a road surface hazard. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be calling road surface hazards. Basically, so what that means is it's going to be stuff that's just on the road, and it doesn't like, it's not like a big thing that like people go and clean up, you know. It's not like an emergency, because cars drive over them a lot and they do fine, but motorcycles have to watch out for them. So that's what we're going to call road surface hazards in this video. So the first one, and probably I would say not the most common, yeah, definitely not the most common, but probably one of the more dangerous ones, is going to be gravel / loose rock, stuff like that. So gravel is obviously a very common type of road in rural areas because it's cheaper. Because it's cheaper, and cars do fine on them. Most cars do fine on them. I mean, you know, the speed limit on gravel is like 55, so cars do fine on them. But gravel is not motorcycles' friend, especially road bikes. Dirt bikes do fine, but like road bikes do not go good with gravel. And so gravel is not supposed to be on street roads like this, like, you know, in-town roads, but it makes its way on there. Main thing is from construction usually. That's what I've noticed. Whew, see, that was a bad rev match there. A little too much throttle on that one. But gravel is mainly going to be found, like loose rock and stuff is going to be mainly from construction sites on roads and stuff. And maybe a little bit in rural areas, like just runoff from other gravel roads and stuff. But the reason these are so dangerous is because when people are riding on a road and they don't see a gravel road incoming, and then they're going 50 miles an hour and they run into gravel road, it's like all bumpy and shaky because you're running into so many like different, you're having so many different changes in your pathway and stuff. And because rocks are bumpy, they're not even, it's an uneven surface, that's going to cause you to lose balance on the bike. You're going to be jerking around a lot and stuff. So that's why you got to be careful. Even just small loose rocks, like singular loose rocks on a basically just loose rocks on the road, like say they fell off someone's car or came out of someone's tire, that can cause an issue with a motorcycle tire because tires are so much smaller than in cars. And so if you hit just a rock the wrong way, it can jerk your tire, you know, your front tire, it can jerk your tire to the side and cause a bit of slippage, loss of traction. And I've had this happen just very minimal, couple times with small rocks and stuff. But you'll notice as a rider, when you start riding, you'll see a rock in the road and you'll hit it and you kind of like jerk to the side, right? You can really feel them as compared to when you're in a car, you don't really feel them as much. So watch out for rocks. They're very, very dangerous road surface hazard, and they're kind of, I would say, inconsistent. Like they're very just out of the blue that they happen. So, and they're not very predictable is what I'm trying to say. So watch out for those. Secondly, I'm going to talk about probably a more common one. I would say this is the most common one. It's these paint lines, these white paint lines. So the paint is a different surface than the asphalt or the concrete, whatever the road's made out of. The paint is a different surface. It's a glossy finish that's put on the road after the asphalt or concrete has been put down. So it adds another layer, and that layer of paint is not near, it doesn't have near as much friction as your standard concrete or asphalt does. So that's why it's so dangerous. When you're on these paint lines, and if you whiskey throttle the bike and you give too much, you give too much on the throttle, that rear tire's got a better chance of spinning, losing traction than it does if you were to just be on concrete and you give a little bit too much throttle. Because your tire's meant to stick to the concrete, right? That's how motorcycles function. But these paint lines they have less traction on them, and so they cause slippage easily. And one thing I'll note with this is that it is especially important when it's raining, because for some reason when those paint lines get wet, they get twice as slippery. I don't know, there's not a specific number I can give you, but they get so much more slippery than when they are standard, when they're dry like this. So I don't watch out for them as much when I'm, just riding when in dry, good conditions. But when they get wet, you really need to watch out for them. I have slipped on dry paint lines and wet paint lines, and wet ones are so much worse. Obviously with the rain, that's going to be a road surface hazard in and of itself. So you should be driving cautiously at that point anyways. So I won't talk about the rain because that's a very common one and pretty self-explanatory. When it's raining, you need to be, and I've talked about that in another video, weather conditions and stuff. When it's raining, you need to be driving slower and being cautious of your traction anyways. So I won't talk about rain, but I wanted to mention it because with the paint lines, rain does kind of amplify that hazard. So the third one that I'm going to talk about is your vehicle spills / oil. Okay. Now this one is kind of funny because when I first started riding, I had heard this from multiple channels, YouTube channels I was watching. Dan the Fireman, Yami Noob maybe a little bit. I'd heard it multiple times. And it's that you have to watch out for motor vehicle lubricants and fluids. Motor vehicle fluids is something you have to watch out for. And I did not think this was a big deal because when you drive a car, you don't really notice those kind of things, right? When you're driving a car, you would think, you don't even think about that. But until you get onto a motorcycle and actually are driving this close to the road, you don't realize that there is a lot of fluids that get poured onto the road from cars. If you just go walk down a street, you're not supposed to walk on the street, they're made for cars, obviously. But if you just go walk on the street, you'll notice that there is just so much more fluid than you may think. Just whether it's oil, leaking exhaust, whatever it may be, there is a lot of fluid. You can probably see it in this video somewhat. But there is just so much fluid that gets poured onto these streets from vehicles, and it is very dangerous for motorcyclists. That being said, I haven't had any bad experiences with it. Now, I've always been cautious of it. I've always been looking and been cautious of it. So when I see it, I don't give too much throttle. I focus on it, right? But this is probably one of the more common road surface hazards that you'll run into. And it's very weird because you never know where it's going to be, right? Oh, we got a cat. Kitty! Stay out of the road, buddy. Oh, man. I've grown to love cats a lot. My friends, at their house, they have a lot of cats, and so I'm starting to like cats more and more. I was more of a dog person for a while because we only ever really had dogs back in my house in my hometown, but I've grown to like cats a little bit more. With oil and with liquids that come from cars, just once you start riding as a beginner, be cautious of it. Okay? It might be something that you overlook or that you think isn't really a big deal, but you need to watch out for it, because you don't know what that liquid is unless you're actively seeing the car leak it. Then you may be able to make a guess, but you really have to watch out for it, because that again can cause an easy loss of traction on that rear tire and cause a low side or even a high side. Okay, so those are the three that I mainly think of when I look at road surface hazards, and the ones that I most commonly run into. So as a beginner, be mindful of these. I'm not saying this is what you should be 100% focused on when you're riding, because you've obviously got a lot of other things going on if you're learning the technicalities of riding a motorcycle. But once you start to get comfortable with the controls, you need to start looking for those external factors that come into play when you're riding a motorcycle, like road surface hazards, okay? There's a lot more hazards than just road surface, but they're good ones to be mindful of because they're so common and they can cause so many little accidents, right? Little low sides that would have been avoided if there wasn't a road surface hazard, or second, if you were aware of the road surface hazard. So be looking for those. Just make sure you're staying safe out there. Always ride a little bit more cautiously when you see those kind of hazards, all right? But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate the views. You know, really just a small YouTuber. I'm just posting because it's fun to do. I'm enjoying recording myself, talking with myself. So yeah, take care, leave a comment, tell me what you guys think. Again, make sure, just stay safe out there, all right? Peace out, guys.